This is Ahval Online, meeting point of accurate news and free comment on the current affairs of Turkey. Welcome to our podcast series.
Welcome to new series of Turkish Trends, part of Ahval podcast series. I'm Nervana Mahmoud, and I'm starting this series with a very interesting topic, Turkish Malaise, which is an essay written by political scientist, Professor Cengiz Aktar. And he dissects in it all the reasons of the problems we are facing or Turkey is facing at the moment. Professor Aktar, thank you for joining me today.
Nervana Mahmoud, nice talking to you.
I have to say, what I found it impressive about your history is of your essay, is how you gone through it like a physician. You start to dissect various aspects of the issue and the roots of it, but in a very concise way. So you started in a historical evolution. Before we go through the details, can you kindly summarize why there is malaise in the Turkish society as a society and as a political leadership at the moment? So a quick sums up for people who didn't read the essay.
Yes, sure. Let's take just one very, concrete example. Let's take this EU candidacy of Turkey.
Oh, yeah.
Which started in 1919 and actually resumed in 99, and it failed. Look at the Western Balkans. There are 6 countries trying by all means to become an EU member. Today, the UK, who made probably the biggest mistake of its glorious history, by leaving the European Union, started to feel the consequences of it. Turkey failed the candidacy, and this is something that never happened in the history of the European Union. So, this is there is something wrong there. It is a shared failure, of course. It is it's due to Turks, but also to the Europeans. We may come back to that.
Yes.
But a country which didn't manage to grasp this opportunity to move forward, that is fascinating. There is something wrong there. I'm not saying that as a Muslim country, Turkey, basically and naturally, quote unquote, is incapable of grasping the Western democracy. I'm not saying this. To the contrary, Bulgarians and Romanians are no more, democrat than Turks, frankly. This failure speaks volume for me, and it is something which has to do probably with deeper diseases that I'm trying to put forward in this short essay.
Yes.
This is what I think I have in mind, because it's a very concrete fact, and it failed, and the reasons are to look back in the history of that country.
Yes, thank you for that. And I perfectly understand where you're coming from. First of all, you said it's a shared failure, which a lot of people say always tend to resort to simplistic narratives, like the Westerners didn't want the Muslim, or the Muslim shouldn't go to Western society. So I'm glad that you highlighted it is a joint shared blame. And you mentioned very spot on that the reason for that failure is go into the evolution of the Turkish society. And that's bring me back to the, the chapters and the evolution, how you started it. I found one line, I loved it. When you, the chapter when you wrote, the conqueror fascinated but what he conquered. And I will tell you why I'm liking that chapter. Because currently, the modern Islamists believe that the only salvation for Islam is to divorce completely from the West, and they go and cite the Ottoman Empire as an example, but that is a false example, because you rightly mentioned how the Ottoman were fascinated but what they conquered, so they didn't divorce themselves from it. So please highlight that a bit more.
This is a very key point. I mean, I intentionally, of course, took Mehmed II, Muhammad II, the conqueror, Fatih, his name.
Yeah.
And he was genuinely, a post-Middle Age illuminated, emperor. And I mentioned this in the book, one of his masters has been educated within the lineage of Ibn Arabi. And we all know who is Ibn Arabi in the thought of the Arab Enlightenment, 11th, 12th century. It's extremely important. And Muhammad II, well, he was so cosmopolitan. He was so open to the world, and he was so open to the other cultures that Ottoman Empire at the time, in my opinion, represented, a perfect, empire capable of the bracing, capable of hugging, I would say, so many different cultures and religions and civilizations, even, a total opposite of what was developing in those days in Europe.
Yes.
Where you remember I call the pensée unique,
exactly.
It's a French word.
Yes.
Whereas the Europe, although a very important event, the Renaissance, was taking place in the Western world, well, the exclusion of the Arabs and the Jews, by the way, from the Western culture, has started to develop in those years, actually in the early Renaissance with Petrarca. The Petrarca is the beginning of the 14th century, mind you. So this is in total opposition with what was happening, in those centuries in the Ottoman Empire, and so this and this continued actually, and Mehmed II, the Ottoman Empire couldn't last. I mean, we won't go back and speculate on why and how and if, but the fact is that this rejection of anything that is represented by the Ottoman Empire or Al-Andalus, for the matter, or the Middle East in general, within the framework of the West, I mean, the Orientalism, in one word, started very early. Orientalism started in the 14th century already. So,
Absolutely.
and it has actually, the Ottoman Empire didn't get any chance, but this habit of this customary rejection by the West, by what has become the West, it became a leitmotif of the entire relationship, both with the Ottoman Empire at the end and with Turkey and with the immediate neighborhood, namely the Middle East and North Africa.
Fantastic. So basically, just to summarize, I think from what you're saying, one of the success of the Ottoman Empire in the initial phase was its cosmopolitanism, which gradually faded until the Ottoman Empire collapsed. And then by Ataturk and the new republic, they started a new process of voluntary and self-imposed Westernization, which again bring a new shock to the society. Is that correct?
Definitely. I mean, probably the worst thing that happened, in my opinion, as a careful reader of history, I'm not historian, but I read history, of course, is the notion of nationhood, the nation. Suddenly all these group of persons, of humans, start who were living next to each other. I'm not saying that they were living together, but they were at least living peacefully without killing themselves next to each other, start to say us and you.
Yes.
And this is probably a calamity. I mean, it's a disaster that happened to the human societies. And that was invented in the West. And unfortunately, the Ottoman Empire didn't manage, to skip the nationization, as I call it in the book, and ended up actually by importing all the sicknesses of the creation of a nation, and to start with, the ethnic, actually the religious cleansing of the non-Muslim societies of the Ottoman Empire, mainly the Christians, the Armenians and Greeks, but also the Jews. In my opinion, the Westernization of the Ottoman Empire was, and we are still in it. Actually, we are living now a reverse process of de-Westernization. We may come to that, but the Westernization had its advantages, but it was very costly at the end of the day, Nervana.
Yes. I understand that you mentioned the birth of the nation and also the Armenian genocide, and I'm glad that you highlighted how the unaccounted crime of genocide, its impact on the birth of the republic. Briefly highlighted why.
Well, for two reasons, actually. One, I mean,
obviously, I'm not underestimating the crime.
No. It's a key point. I mean, it's a fundamental point, really. When as a country, as a polity, as we say, as a polity, you ignore and you tend to forget, and you erase from your memory what you have done to 1.5 million citizens of your country, I'm talking about the Armenians,
Yes,
in 16 months, 1/6. And you cannot become a normal country.
absolutely.
This is impossible. And this is exactly what is happening now. What is, what we are watching and witnessing. What is compared to the unaccounted crime of genocide? What is the value and the weight of what Erdogan is doing today in Turkey? It's zilch, nothing. It's compared to the genocide. It's peanuts, if I may say so. So it's and this is a fundamental sickness and a fundamental, disorder which shaped the Turkish Republic, unfortunately. And people don't, tend very often to forget this. Unfortunately, it's there. And the entire system, I mean, the society functions through the consequences of this unaccounted crime of genocide. I mean, people in Turkey are, they don't like to be responsible of their acts. They don't like to be accountable for their acts. All these are coming from that area, from that era, actually, of genocide. I mean, no one paid any price to it. Imagine Germany today. If Germans, okay, they have shortcomings, loopholes, etc. But imagine Germans not being capable of facing the Shoah, the Holocaust of Jews. Would Germany be what they are today?
Absolutely not. No.
So this is exactly where we are. But I mean, we can extend this to many societies.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Same for the colonialism of the West and what happened. I mean, the Belgians in Belgian Congo, the French in Algeria, etc. I mean, it's name it. I mean, it's and
absolutely. So let me.
History catches us back.
Oh, I like that. Absolutely. So briefly, now we have moved on now to from self-imposed westernization to the opposite later after Ataturk, etc. So we missed the rendezvous between Turkey and Europe failed, and Europe, as you mentioned, Turkey, for reason from both sides, Turkey ended up not joining the EU. But also after the rise of political Islam, there was a rising de-Westernization of the society. And I liked your discussion about the veil and how this the veil when it comes to public life. Yes. Kindly highlight that a little bit more to our audience.
Unfortunately, political Islam, be it in Turkey or in Egypt, in Afghanistan, and everywhere in the world,
yes.
work through the body of women.
Yeah, I mean, very true. Very true.
It's an obsession, really, and the hair of women, the sex of women. I mean, this is where they are completely stuck. And when I say they, 100% of them are men.
So yes, what I meant is that they wanted to bring that to publicity, like women have to appear wearing the veil. This is a this is what political Islam brought, something new than probably the old Ottoman Empire or old Muslim Caliphate, when women were just in the shadow, which exactly what happened with Taliban now. That's what Taliban is trying to bring. But the political Islamists of Turkey and the Muslim Brotherhood are happy for women to appear, but they have to maintain the mahram, which is a concept mentioned in your book, and I completely agree with. Is that correct?
Yeah. Of course. This is, unfortunately, it failed. I mean, personally, I have no problem with with women wearing,
Hijab.
hiding their my granny was,
Exactly,
putting a
same here.
veil on her, exactly, mahrem. And not only in Islam, by the way. I mean, in Christian countries, or elderly women and maybe some other, they hide their head. It's a personal choice.
Oh, absolutely.
We are not talking about personal choice.
No. We were talking about it as a phenomena in a part of the de-Westernization of the society. That's what I meant.
Exactly. Yes.
So the de-Westernization didn't just stop at encouraging women to have their own option, as you rightly mentioned, because neither me or you, to highlight or make it prove we are against hijab. We are talking it within the context of the de-Westernization of the society and how the society moved from one opposite to another and the impact on it on the Turkish Malaise. That's what I meant, I guess.
This is, this is a key trend, and I think we are now witnessing, I would say, a fantastic phenomenon. I mean, the last 200 years of the Ottoman Empire and Turkey and all those countries who came out of the Ottoman Empire. They are almost 40. We tend to forget. I mean, all these countries were within the Westernization process. Now, as far as Turkey is concerned, we are in the counter process. And
Right.
Political Islam is kind of taking revenge of what has started with Mahmud II in the beginning of the 19th century. And this is a very dangerous process. And many Westerners don't understand this. And they think that Turkey still is a normal country which can be reformed, and all these misdeeds and wrongdoings of the present regime can be reversed and Turkey can become a normal country. It's not true, unfortunately.
Why?
The Western norms, standards, principles, and values are fundamentally against the functioning of the political Islam in Turkey, but also in Egypt and in all countries where political Islam, has a pretension to govern. So this is a fundamental, it's like, unfortunately, it's like, the water and fire. And the opportunity that the Turkish political Islam had with the EU, actually, and we are coming to the beginning of the talk, and it was that they had the opportunity to mix this Western dynamic with local, dynamics, so to end up in what I call, a Muslim democracy, like the Christian democracy. They missed that, and
yes.
they ended up by, sheer, brutal, parochial political Islam, in which Turkey now is, frankly, trying to survive. When I say Turkey, the Turkish society. So
okay.
It's extremely worrisome, and in this failure, I repeat what I said in the beginning, Europe's role is quite important as well.
So now let's make sense of the current Turkish regime. And I'm glad you mentioned 2013 as a critical year. Why 2013 was critical?
Well, I mean, two extremely important developments happened there. In June, a kind of peaceful, protest upheaval, even, in Istanbul, has been, literally eliminated very violently. Some 10 people died, if I'm not mistaken. Many got injured, and at the end of the year, a major embezzlement and corruption scandal involving Erdogan, his family, and his ministers took place. These two phenomenon made Erdogan completely, he started to fear. He started a huge phobia because these two phenomena were challenging his two major power bases, namely the political power for what happened in June in Gezi and his financial power for what happened in December the same year. And then he completely changed. And some people say that he was always like this. It's not true. And he completely changed, and he started to, to become a full-fledged dictator since now 8 years.
So now the West have a belligerent leader who tried to expand West, tried to have influence in the East Med, and failed in various aspects, and failed in Europe or failed to join Europe for other reasons. And the West have now a Turkish conundrum.
Yes.
It's from what you wrote and what I humbly believe, that the West is trying to compartmentalize the relationship with Turkey. So they focus on one area, like the immigrant or Cyprus or whatever, and they cannot handle Turkey completely as a whole country in Malaise. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Turkey lost a lot with this broken relationship with Europe. The other countries, third countries, lost as well, mind you. The Caucasus, the Middle Eastern countries, North African countries, because Turkey was representing something for all these countries. A country which would compose and which would coexist with the West. That was extremely important message from the West. So that is gone as well. But the West lost also, because the Western Europe at least, and the United States, got there, had actually an opportunity to coexist with a different country peacefully, at least, and at last actually. And so they missed that. Now they have to bear the consequences of this failure, because Turkey has become, from an opportunity, it became a liability, exactly like Russia. Now Europe, in the decades to come, has to deal with two big problematic countries, Russia and Turkey, in its eastern border, and they will never ever have peace. So to peacefully live within the continent. I mean, this migration phenomenon, it's a permanent phenomenon. I mean, it will stay there. I mean, there are two major, failure that we have to live with in the decades to come. One is the migration, international migration, and the second one is the change of climate. The climate change. So this is, the West completely lost, the opportunity to have, Turkey within the continent and solve its problems with Turkey, not against Turkey. So it's a joint failure.
So now you mentioned, I know...
joint malaise, actually. It's a joint malaise.
Correct. But I understand where you're coming from, and obviously I understand why you're blaming both sides rightly. But now you mentioned 2023, you mentioned that the Republic of Turkey will celebrate its centenary in October 29, 2023. But you cleverly, I guess, didn't want to predict what's going to happen. Now we have a leader who authoritarian with every definition. We have an election in Turkey. How can you see, and we have the West, which, if I may say, you described initially the conquer of Constantinople and the clashes between Eastern Orthodoxy and the Western Christianity. And I believe now we have something little bit similar of various factions in Western society and Turkey. Can you try to not predict, but tell us what the challenges ahead? 2023 is only 2 years from now. How can you see the future?
I mean, one thing is crystal clear to me and some, friends of mine. I mean, Turkey won't become a normal country between now and the centenary of the Republic. My scenario, and this is not in the book, I'm expecting, a Sisi-like scenario. What I mean by that, it's a strong regime, getting rid of the political Islam and not necessarily and sufficiently democratic, but pro-Western. So the West won't open the mouth there. I think they will go for it. And this is my scenario. And the man in charge who would replace Erdogan might be Hulusi Akar, the present Minister of Defense. He is very close to the Americans. And a few days ago, there was an article in Foreign Policy by
by Stephen Cook.
Who just mentioned this. I'm saying, I'm talking about this scenario, by the way, since 2015. And I used to call the name, I have a tag for this since then. I call it Hulu Sisi.
Wow, both of you now, or at least agree on that, and you could see the reaction and the angry reaction from pro-Erdogan to that article, so we shall see how they're going to respond to that podcast. And but it was very interesting, and I'm really delighted that we had this chat. And thank you very much, Professor Aktar. I thoroughly enjoyed that podcast, and thank you for joining me. See you in the next episode of Turkish Trend. This is Nervana Mahmoud.
You can follow Ahval News Online podcast series through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, and Spreaker. All you need to know about Turkey is here, for your ears, mind, and attention. Thank you for listening to our podcast.